It's the SDG Podcast. Before we get started, you can check us out on the web at solutiondesign.com/podcast or find us on all the social medias, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Solution Design Group. We're doing this. Welcome back for another podcast. With us, we have Peter Lawrence, Chad Juttner, and joining us for the first time is Payal Patel.
Thank you. Hello.
Thanks for being here. And I'm Kyle Bacher, and today we're going to talk about being happier. How can we be happier at work and maybe at home? Not in the car, because I'm total road rage, and I will never stop. So, Chad, you seem like a mostly happy person, and you do too, Pyle. What's your secrets?
Well, I guess.
Our guest gets to go first.
Excellent.
I was going to answer for Chad. I would assume his is the 1029 bar.
Pyle,
Your single source of happiness.
There's a fountain of youth at the 1029 bar that I tap into a few times a week, and I appreciate its existence.
I was trying to think of what would be my single source of happiness, and the best I could come up with is maybe cheesecake. I don't know, relying on sugar for dopamine hits, that seems like a slippery slope.
Does that mean you have cheesecake like daily, weekly? How often is the cheesecake infusion?
Is there a service?
It at least weekly.
Okay.
Do you subscribe to like Cheesecake of the Week Club?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cheesecake Factory is where I...
Excellent.
I can't remember the last time I had a Cheesecake Factory visit, actually. Is that a thing in Minnesota?
Yeah.
It is. I think there's one
Southdale.
at Ridgeville by the office.
Ridgeville as well, by the Apple Store, kind of. Where Pizzeria Uno used to be, I think. Peter, what do you go to? What's your go-to to become a little bit happier? The other Peter.
Chad? Is Chad the other Peter, or am I?
No.
I have learned ages and ages of not learning to let a lot of things go. It's just there's no benefit to keeping it inside. It's hard to tell my brain that at 2 a.m. sometimes when it wants to relive past tragedies, but I just tell it, that the past is the past. You can't fix it now, so move on.
Yep.
I think what makes me very happy is when I have long conversations with my good friends and we talk about everything in the world, and then you realize 4 hours has gone by. But we have a lot of fun. That should be a podcast. We should be recording.
Is there a fire, and are there beers present?
Mm.
That doesn't have to be. Yeah. So
certainly would help.
Yeah, it's better if there were.
I've been becoming happier at work. I've been trying at it. It's rough when you have things coming in all directions. And so what makes you unhappy?
Employed for a nice company. I am appreciated. And I think the opposite. So this might be a thing that actually, it makes me happy. But it's not like any of us don't have some form of influence in our company, right? I mean, maybe some of us have more, less, whatever, but any of us on this call can say like, hey, I found this thing and it's kind of nonsense. And where we are right now, that carries a certain amount of weight, as long as we don't abuse it. And it's very different where we are now than it is at, say, one of the Fortune 50 companies in Minnesota, right? Like you could be really bummed out about something there, say like, hey, I really wish we could change this. And the default answer is no.
Like yelling into a giant hole.
Yeah. So that's, prior to the decade before joining SDG and where I had a lot of control over my environment, having some amount of influence, your day-to-day is pretty huge. And when you're in situations when that's not a thing, I can imagine it's going to lead to unpleasant thoughts.
Influence and some autonomy, which is trust. Being trusted, I think, is important. Yeah, when you don't feel those things. Sometimes for me, it's just the stress that I put on myself with expectations. And I forget that what I'm doing is not the most important thing on the planet. No one dies if I get it done a day late and things like that. But I have to work on it because I'm a people pleaser, and then I don't want to fail. I'm allergic to failure, and I'm kind of a perfectionist unless you look at my office and you go, yeah, right.
I'm with you, though. I find myself in that position all the time where it's like I have to remind myself, okay, you're being really critical of yourself. Are you doing your best? Yes. Are you doing a good job? Yes. Are you going to make mistakes? Yes. And why do I not give myself the same grace that I would give my colleagues or give my friends? Like, why do I not have that same inner voice for myself that I offer others? And that kind of helps ground me in my situations when I find myself like overly critical or unhappy because I've, not brought perfection.
Yeah, I think you hit on something really important. You get into this world of self-care. And one of the things they talk about is, would you treat yourself this way? What if it was you in this situation? Everybody else, you're forgiving and saying it's no big deal, and you're showing the love and compassion and things like that. And then it's yourself, and you're like, you suck. You are horrible. And it's like, why are you so mean to yourself? I'm like, I don't know, because I'm just a bully, I guess. But then if you think about it, what would I do? And it's like, okay, I'll survive this. This isn't as bad as I thought. It's hard though being a worrier.
What do you worry about? What is there to worry about these days?
My main worries is like, will I be able to take care of everybody? That's usually my worry.
Someone will have problems and won't tell you? Or
yeah, the problem's out there and I can't get to them, or somebody wants, and will I be able to get this done in time? Will people think my video is funny? That's a big one. So editing video is tedious and can be somewhat painful, and trying to be creative and be funny, and then you send it out and you just hope that somebody likes it and says, hey, that was nice. You hope somebody listens to the podcast, and that's nice. True. So I worry about that kind of stuff.
I don't think I've gotten any negative feedback on the podcast. I've gotten only positive feedback, but maybe that's you shielding us, Kyle, from...
Wait, Peter, you can't remember a single time where somebody was a little frustrated?
I've definitely heard some feedback.
Not even one.
Well, now that
Inquisition.
you mention
No. Live in that world, Peter. It's great, right? Because I've learned this technique from another friend of ours. I have a friend that just prunes bad memories. Like, oh, they never happened, right? She's like her cerebral cortex is like a bonsai tree, and if anything unhappy happens on it, she just gets snipped off and pruned, and that doesn't exist anymore, which is what Peter just did.
You're right. I totally had forgotten. Well, and actually, the time that you're talking about, I didn't treat it as a bad memory. I thought it was a good memory, and everything was fine.
A way to reframe those unhappy thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, it was an opportunity to talk about things that we've talked about on the podcast and share it with others, right? And talk to everyone about what we're doing here, which is kind of fun.
It is interesting to think about the same situation, the same podcast, and the different perspectives on how that came out, right?
Oh, exactly.
For Chad, an unpleasant memory, it seems.
Well, it wasn't even... So for me, it wasn't even necessarily unpleasant, right? Like I was like a little shocked. I'm like, oh, and I had to re-listen, right? So it got me to go back and re-listen to it. And even, our friend prepped us. We had a little panel discussion. What I don't think folks realize, though, is that panel discussion happened on a Thursday, I think, right, Peter? Or Wednesday.
Yeah, could have been. Sure.
I had just flown in, to an hour and a half before that, from a week out of town where I was up at 4 a.m. every morning working, an insane amount of hours. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to not be here because I feel like maybe I probably said something that folks took offense to. And so in front of this large group of folks that had questions about our perspectives, it was a less than ideal situation with almost no energy on my end. So in that regards, it was in my head less than pleasant.
That's probably why it went so well.
No, and Kyle, I know you were a spectator rather than a participant.
I felt bad. I felt left out and passed over and forgotten.
But I think it's just because
all I remember from that episode was just Kyle being super funny with amazing edits.
It was a good outcome, as bad as it was. And I'm sorry, Chad, I didn't mean to put you down or anything, because you participated. You might have been really, really tired, but you added a lot. And Peter, and you guys had the questions ahead of time, which was nice. And I thought the host was very kind. He's a very good guy. And probably the worst thing that happened is when I like disrupted the whole thing midway through and kind of dropped a bomb. The elephant in the room.
Hey, I saw no bombs, nothing like that. Anyway, we're kind of off topic. Here,
Yeah.
Sorry.
Let's be a little bit more
who's gonna
positive.
know what we're talking about.
But like one of the my positive takeaway from that was I listened to the podcast and I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the podcast that we did, and it kind of because there are a lot of podcasts that we've done that I haven't gone back and said I need to listen to that as an outside observer. I need to go back and hear myself, hear my voice, and see if I ummed and awed my way through something or what. So it's nice to have that sort of perspective back and say, no, I'm doing a good job. We all did a good job, and I'd do it again.
And I would say that my takeaway is time. Like let things unfold, let time happen. Instead of freaking out in the middle of the experience, it's not over yet, and it's like, okay, just go with it, and eventually this is going to be fine, and it might make something better happen. And it did.
Yeah,
the outcome
honestly,
was
time
great.
is a huge benefit, right? Like a lot of things, and I think that's part of the experience that comes with having worked for a long time, is seeing that explosion was really a firecracker, but they zoomed way in on the firecracker, right? So it looked like a huge explosion, but really it was just like, it was a little tiny thing, made a little noise, and then everybody forgot about it because it wasn't July 4th anymore. Paul, how about you? What do you do to sort of stay positive at work and keep things on the right track?
Yeah, I think for me, it really stemmed back a long time. I didn't have the best of childhoods. It wasn't a carefree, just all fun and games type of environment for me growing up. And so I remember for a long time, I would put so much weight on other people changing or circumstances changing, or if my environment changes, like if only all these factors will change that, like I could feel more happiness. And over time, it was one of those things where it's like, yeah, that's not happening. And I continue to be disappointed, and I continue to feel the same angst that I've been feeling all of these years. And like the whole saying, right? Insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. By the way, was not Einstein. Rita May. Shout out to you. But that's kind of what I realized I was doing. It's like I was just living my life the same exact way, expecting things to change. And at a certain point, it was just this realization that, I have to do something about this. Like, what can I start now doing and changing in my own environment to kind of remedy this for myself? And, I'll say that all of this is not to say that people who find themselves in very exceptional situations can just, choose to believe that happiness is a choice, right? Like, I'm never going to go up to somebody who just lost their job and is struggling to feed their children and be like, hey, money can't buy you happiness. Or have you just, thought about being more happy when someone's dealing with their mental health struggles? Like, no, I'm not referring to those situations that are going to be exceptional, that you're probably going to need professional help or some additional support, or really, if you're struggling to feed your kids, money, it probably will buy you happiness, right? But for me, it was starting to figure out what the root causes of these issues were, right? And a lot of it was, okay, when I have these people in my life who are toxic or causing unhappiness, like I can't expect them to change. I can't put all that power back on them to change how I'm feeling. At that point, I need to do things like start eliminating folks or building up those healthy boundaries around people to then start changing my circumstances. So really starting to think of things from that perspective helped me a lot. And when it comes to work, it's kind of applying that same mentality of like, really figure out what it is that's the root of your unhappiness here, and what can you do about that? I think the biggest struggle with all of that has been the confirmation bias that comes with unhappiness, right?
Yeah.
Like we all have this tendency to look for the evidence that may not be there, or try to, like just find around you, like I have this belief and now I'm going to look everywhere to confirm that belief for myself, right? And memories, you start putting more weight on the things that confirm that feeling than you do on things that may, start to conflict with those beliefs. And I find myself, having to recognize that a lot with work. So, when I end up in these situations where it's like, well, none of the managers here support anybody ever, right? And it's like, that is that lethal combination of making an overgeneralization about all the managers and then having these like absolute statements of they never do anything. And that's that lethal combination for confirmation bias where all of a sudden you're seeing it everywhere, right? Like this one situation happens and it's like, that's another example. See, they just did it again. Never mind the 5 or 6 examples of the times that they were super supportive or they did try to have your back or they came up with creative solutions or whatever, right? You start downplaying those things to upplay whatever these negative thoughts and these unhappy beliefs may be. And so, just trying to keep that in mind and be like, hey, what's the actual reality here? What evidence do I have to support what I'm thinking right now? And is there a focus that I could be shifting to help with my own happiness when these beliefs start creeping in? So,
yeah, for sure. That you bring up 2 really good points, and that sort of some of that workplace self-feeding mechanism where everybody starts spiraling down at the same time is kind of a horrible thing. Another thing you mentioned was that, you mentioned it in sort of an outside case that sometimes you really do need to go and seek help. And it's okay to seek help for small things too. There've been many times where I've, told a consultant manager like, hey, this really bad thing is going on and I don't know what's going to happen, but, and then they listen and then they say it'll probably be fine. And turns out they were right. It was fine. I was just really looking for bad things.
Yeah.
Every project I ever started had a call to Claire after about a week. Yeah, I don't know if this is going to work out. They're going to probably kick me out the door anytime. This is horrible. This is going to fail. It's the worst thing ever.
The mask has come off.
And then everything was fine. Or I was just worried. I'm just a worrier. So it came from all of that. And I kind of was able to dial that back more and more by trusting myself. It's like, well, you did all these things already. You're that same guy. You're going to be that same guy. And you figured it all out. And if there's things you run into, if you get stuck, you have a very, very large, very talented, very smart support system to tap into.
Right.
So you're okay. Just focus on the work and it'll happen. And it always did.
Chad, you've mentioned maybe a happy hour or 2 occasionally. Do you think those help keep the workplace happier?
It's such an individual thing, but for me, I'm happier when I'm around people. I'm happier when when I can make people laugh at something really, really stupid, right? And happy hours are a great spot for that, right? Like certain bits and certain routines where I know like I can usually maybe delight people, a little bit. Is it
close hand magic?
It is not close hand magic. No,
Okay.
I'm actually really bad at that.
I think it's a gallon freezer bag of tokens from what I've experienced.
from what? Yeah. So Pyle has firsthand experience with this, and so it will be again. But yeah, I mean, I think there's a handful of things I don't like the work-life balance thing. I have a much different take on it than I think what a lot of people try to enforce, right? Because I don't from 9 to 5 or from whatever my work hours are. We won't say what they are, but I'm still like, this isn't severance, right? Like we're still, and I don't really follow the code switching that we do in the office where we have to all of a sudden become a person that circles back and puts a pin in it and double clicks on that idea. And I'm like, what? I hate that, right? Like that whole language that we have invented to be as non-offensive as possible or whatever the reason is. I hate it. So like my happiness comes from being the same quantity of Chad that you get, op hours as on hours.
Nice.
And there's things that I do that, some folks don't love. Some of the things I do get erased, which is fine. But I come into the SDG office. Kyle knows this. We play music, right? Because that's what happens at home. That's what I bring with me to the office. And I hope you guys like Biggie Smalls because we're going to listen to some Biggie and we're going to listen to some Tupac. And we're going to have a nice little, like, the anti-pattern to that is walking into like a dead silent off. I focus way less in that environment than I do if there's like noise and music and things happening.
Yeah, the library workspace is a challenge, that's for sure.
Yeah. And I
got chewed out this morning for talking too loud
Oh no.
because somebody was on a call. And
Yeah, but we all know. I mean, the folks that are on a
Yeah.
call know. Like I was in calls almost the entire day yesterday from,
Yeah.
and God bless you, Emily, for letting me use your office. I didn't ask. I did. I just used it. And I apologize for what I put in your top drawer. But there's loud people out there all the time. And I actually like that.
Always.
I mean, some sign of life
Yeah.
is good. So music, people, happy hours, absolutely yes to all those things. Laughter, and people actually talking like actual people talk and not whatever
the
the
stiff,
hell.
like that hyper professional, stiff pro talk.
It's almost, at this point to me, it's almost offensive. Right? Like,
Yeah.
so
You're lucky they
TV.
bought Marvel, huh?
Even late night TV.
That's
can
say
where
shit.
I go. Yeah.
Yeah. But the F word,
Kyle.
you get one per PG, you get one per PG movie. I looked up the
yeah.
I looked up the rules, and so yes, on Slack I will only say the F word 4 times a day because that's 4 movies long.
There's a great clip with the guys that did Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, and they were trying to figure out where they would put the F word because they got one.
Yeah, I mean, getting back to the one thing that I've done now for the last, I guess, 15 years is just don't be a different person, because that's it was hard when I was at these larger local companies, and I really needed to be like to fit in and do all this stuff. Like it's hard, and it like wears on you after a while to do that all day. Then work does feel like work and not life,
Yeah.
right?
Unnecessarily exhausting. Like I've noticed this with work too, right? When you're putting on the face and putting on the facade and you're showing up kind of acting the entire day to appear more professional or be taken more seriously or whatever the case may be. Like you said, dehumanizing yourself during your work hours. It's like that's a majority of your conscious time, right? A lot of times with work, like that's how you're spending a majority of your time. And then afterwards, you're just depleted of energy. And I usually don't have much left for myself after that. And recently it has been like, nope, let me just show up as myself. Like, because I want my team members to be able to show up like themselves. I don't want them to have to do what I felt like I had to do for such a long time. And, now I'm honest, like, hey, I'm not from Minnesota. Winters here freaking suck. Like, in other words, right? Like, I get seasonal depression here. I'm not going to be pleasant in the winter time. And like, hey, this is me being honest with you that, it was a struggle to wake up today. It's a struggle to join the stand up. My cats are breaking things in the background. Yeah, I mean, that's the
other thing.
That's being human.
Like the expectation of happiness in others. Like they're not always gonna be happy. And that's okay. And I'm not going to always be able to make people happy. Sometimes part of my job is going to make people unhappy. If I have to take away the
security documents,
security stuff. Yeah. A lot of it's pretty dull and got to do it. Security policy. Yuck.
I think regulatory frameworks around what we do. I mean, whatever, right? Like we deal with that, but
yeah.
I love the way Kyle phrased it, right? Like we're not going to dehumanize ourselves. And I think I'm hoping this trend continues in as inoffensive a way as it can. And this is sometimes why I get annoyed at, some of the little course corrections certain people are given, like, hey, you can't, come on. We some of the things are so inoffensive and taken so in such a the worst possible light that it's gotten a little silly. That's a soapbox thing I shouldn't be on right now. But
they've definitely had their
I don't
magnifying
want
glass on the firework.
I don't want to work with phonies. That kind of is what it boils down to, and it's real phony when someone's hyper professional. It's just comes across.
Yeah, and it's infectious too. Like once you start being real, I don't know if you've seen this pile, but I'm at a very large organization right now. As I do what I do, you can, initially it's a bit of depending on the culture of where you're at, initially it can become it's a bit of a shock, right? Like, did you see what Chad said? No. and then it becomes like kind of this thing that just kind of bleeds out, right, to everybody. And then everybody's just being like real people. And that's how we get like really great teams.
Yeah.
Really like working really well together as opposed to, this
performative team.
Yeah, this exactly.
It's
because
a
then you're
barrier.
airing things out, right? Like, okay, when you said that didn't make any sense to me. Could you rephrase, like, or that bothered me. Can we focus on this? Like when we're able to be real with each other, we're actually solving problems. We're addressing conflict. We're letting each other know what we prefer and what we don't prefer and what works for us and what doesn't. And we're being human with each other and being real with each other. And then you're an actual team like that can work together in reality rather than putting on this fake performance of like nothing bothers me and everything's okay and I'm hyper professional all the time and like everything that everybody says and does is always perfect because I'm just a team player and I don't let anything bother me. Like, no.
Yeah, it kind of gives people the wrong idea, and I like young people that are starting out their careers into that situation. If they feel like they're working with a bunch of perfect people and they need to be perfect, and like you said, Chad, it's kind of contagious. But it's a barrier, it's a wall, and then you have to break through, and that hurts communication and it hurts perception, and you get people that put people on pedestals because they think they're perfect, and it's I think the older you get, the more you realize that it's just better to chill out. There's a whole candor movement, which I really like, practicing candor. Just being, I walked in that room, I was talking, he said, hey, it's really hard for me to listen right now on this call. Could you take it outside? And I felt bad for walking in there being such a loudmouth. I didn't feel bad that he said that. I was glad that he said that because it was quick, got the point across, and we hightailed it out of there. I want to get him some really big headphones. Yeah.
It saved the 2 months of resentment that someone would have felt if they didn't just vocalize it and you continued it. And
Yeah.
Well, I mean, when I go into work in the office, I know the environment that I'm walking into because it's a lot of people that haven't been together for a lot of time, and they're going to talk because they're happy to be together. Right? I do it myself. I sat down in your office, Kyle, and had a nice little chat for a little bit. And I've gone to other people's offices or stopped them in the hall and had a chat. And it's horrible if you're doing it outside of Emily's office while Chad's on a call. You might be a little too loud, but you still...
I do wish laptops had better indicators, external indicators to let folks know.
Right. I had a light that I got to test out. And it was horrible. It worked for like 2 seconds and then it didn't. It's like a little presence indicator you put on. I thought you have headphones and the headphones has a big sign that says on a call.
Yeah, I was going to say money makes me happy. And this seems like a money making opportunity. What about like a hat? Just a simple
you turn your hat backwards.
With a cool logo that, is like, I'm on a call right now that I'd rather not be on. Could have been an email or something like that you just put on to let people know.
Flip out plastic things they have on the doctor's room doors to get the secret code and status indicators.
What flip out things?
When you go to they put you in the room at the doctor's office and then they flip that plastic thing out.
Yes.
I don't know what that means, but I think if we had a little one in our hats.
Patient.
One thing that I've, as far as day-to-day happiness, this is a new thing. Kyle mentioned I like money. I also enjoy money, but I get teased because I don't ever really spend it on like things for myself, right? Like I will spend money at a happy hour. I think that's clear, but like buying myself things, it's not a thing. But I have changed that recently, and this has actually helped my day-to-day work a lot. I bought I spent way too much money on a stupid keyboard. This was like $200, and it's super clicky, like super clicky, and I'm just overjoyed. Like I actually kind of looked forward to coming down here and just like, I hope somebody says something silly to me so I can be like, whatever, right? Because now they'll hear me be like angrily typing. Like before it was just kind of like those quiet little what. So I know that's kind of a privilege, right? But like if you can, the things that I use every single day, spending just a tiny bit more on them has an impact for me. And I hope that doesn't make me superficial, but like a nice keyboard, a nice little mouse that I just bought, and nice earbuds. Dealing with crappy technology, I realized one of the things that I was bummed about was like just typing on my old keyboard because the keys get a little gummy and they don't like whatever. And it just adds to the misery of a day. And then I just like, this is wonderful. And if you can help it, always work next to a dog.
That really helps.
That for me, such a nice thing, because like, even if I get like, one of the key things that could potentially lead to a lot of unhappiness is stress. And for me, even if we're not out walking around or doing stuff, just looking down at him, like, look at the little, now he just stretched out to be even more comfortable.
He looks pretty relaxed.
It's super. I bought him.
Has no stress.
I spent money on. I bought him this big bed, so he's in here almost nonstop.
Well, they say when you buy a mattress, you should spend good money on it and get a good mattress because you sleep on it every day.
Well, yeah, and so like I spend. What is the average career length? What, 40 years maybe?
Well, now it's going to be like 70, but yeah.
So 40 years, and then like 1/3 of that time is spent for us in front of a screen and a keyboard.
Yep.
1/3 of your life, just make that experience as pleasant as you possibly can. And I'm genuinely mildly more pleased with that third or half of my day now, where the tools that I use aren't bumming me out or aren't making things worse. So nice keyboard, nice mouse. I hope Sonos stays in business, because that thing is on almost all the time. And a dog.
Good internet.
How can I be mad? How can I be bummed out, right? I got a nice dog. I got a cool keyboard, nice music. For some reason, I can still make my girl smile. Like, that's pretty nice.
An
That's
embarrassment of riches.
Opposite
Yeah,
to
focusing
that,
on the
I
good
would
stuff.
not recommend cats. Mine cause me a lot of stress. Usually when they're around and I'm trying to work, it's not pleasant if you have the option.
That's because they have a mind of their own, and they tend to exercise that more than
Yeah.
dogs somehow.
Also, I'm kidding. I love my cats.
In case my cats are listening right now, I love you guys.
Please don't
You're the
call
best.
my face.
So one thing I've experienced is, with customers, different situations here, walking into drama and other people's drama, and learning to stay out of it and not take on, because I always want to help. And so I don't think my help is always helpful. And welcome, it's someone else's row to hoe. It's their drama. And so I try to stay in my lane more. And I try not to feel like I'm responsible for fixing everybody.
I don't know if this is the same thing, but one of the things that I enjoy, and one of the services that I try to provide is really just listening, like, non-critically to folks. It does kind of have that opposite effect where, like, some of it does bleed into you a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like you absorb a little bit of it.
Sure.
But at the same time, it's not like, I know when folks do that for me, it helps. And if you can do that, I know how much it helps me. So I'd like to be able to return that.
And I think what you mentioned was a great thing, where you're a listener and you're listening respectfully, trying to be a solver, because being a solver, and boy, as a software developer, I really like solving problems. I really like all problems, be they human, if your car doesn't work, I want to try to fix it, but I'm not going to fix your car because I'm not a mechanic, but I'll listen to you tell me about it. And that's a lesson that I've learned over time, is that listening and not solving is so much better.
Empathy.
Yeah.
Well, just somebody knows that there's someone else that recognizes this and has empathy for you. That in itself is supportive, is very helpful.
I'm right there with you though, Peter. Like, I took so long to finally be like, I can't be the solver and everything. And a lot of times you're causing even more unhappiness for somebody because they're coming to you to just vent and get something off their chest. And they're not
Right.
looking for solutions. They're just looking for some support, some emotional support. And I couldn't tell the difference for the longest time. Even so with my current role, I'm a Scrum Master. So even in my retros, I actually had to create a board, like a column specifically for need to vent about
I
this.
like that.
And then I
Yeah.
have like a second one that's a need to solution this, so I can
Right.
tell the difference, right? Because what I was doing is taking everything and like, well, have we tried this? Or, what do you guys think about this? Or like just trying to solution every single thing that was coming out of someone's mouth. So I could tell that my team, wasn't appreciating that
I like
so
that
much.
idea
So
of
yeah,
having
now we
that
have
on
a
the board.
venting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I had
and
a
that's where we can
project-
be more general or, express
Yeah.
things that were frustrating. And then the solutioning is like, well, let's be specific now. Like, what actually took place? What are the things that were within our control? What could we have done better?
Well, and sometimes people figure out their problems just by vocalizing them.
Mm-hmm.
Rubber duck.
and that's helpful. I've had that. I think I've had that with Peter, like just walking you through stuff, and I'm like, and by the end, I'm like, and think I figured it out. So thank you.
Nice.
Those are my favorite. I love fixing
Yeah.
things for people by not doing anything but listening.
Yes. I had a really difficult project at a different company I worked for, and our team, we were pretty close knit, and there was a lot of stuff going on, and our solution was happy hour pretty much every day. And we worked like 12 feet from a bar, which helped. So it was go in there and we decompressed and vented and were together in that space. And then we were able to get back to work the next day and be productive. And I think that was probably the best thing we did to succeed on that project, was having that vent space outside of like the normal hours.
This makes me wonder, because Chad, you had also mentioned like when you go into the office and how happy it makes you to just be around people. And I think, Peter, you had mentioned the same thing. How do you find that balance though? Like, because I feel like I end up in a lot of situations where the happy hours do end up becoming like a venting, dumping situation where everybody's kind of feeding off of that same frustration, that same energy. And I get that there's a lot of work friendships that form, a lot of bonds that form over these like common issues that you experience or common frustrations or, like the common enemy. So how do you find that balance of like getting it out of your system, but then not like participating in it and stewing in it and having it perpetuate and having it become this regular thing that you're constantly putting so much energy and focus into?
Is that Peter? Do you want to go first?
I want you to go first, Chad, because you are the happy hour expert.
I'm not an expert. I'm not. I don't have a great answer for you though, because I think it goes back to like when I need somebody to talk to about whatever. I do want to be called out of my bullshit to a certain degree, right? Like I don't want to get so absorbed into my own whatever that I just, everything is just being confirmed to me like blindly. Like I want to trust that, when I'm venting, if I'm wrong in some way, shape or form, I would like to know. And I've got a couple of really good friends, really good work friends that are really good at actually saying that, right? Like, okay, I was with you to this point, but have you thought about X, right?
Yeah.
And they've done such a good job with me, and I've learned this more at STG than I had anywhere else before. Like, I am maybe a bit of a control freak, and I had complete control of my last organization, and now I have, not complete control of the entire organization. I have some autonomy on my team. Right. And so like every once in a while, I need somebody to tell me, well, that's not what this is anymore. Calm down, relax. And roll with it a little bit. I mean, if I agree with you, and I think, Kyle, you and I have had these happy hours that we're talking about, like, I will agree with you. Like, yeah, this is great. This is great. That was great. And then every once in a while, like, there's one thing where I'm like, I don't know, I just have a different experience, like a completely opposite experience. But I'm not going to like stop you in your tracks and say, no, you're wrong. I'm not going to, now this is where I stop listening.
What I think of what's cool about you at Happy Hour is like, I can almost see it happening where it's like this conversation has been going on for a while. People are like, and the energy is getting heated. And then like, this is the most quiet I can see you becoming. And I'm like, okay, now you're just listening. And I admire that about you, where it's like, I'm done participating in this actively. Like, I'm just now going to be here listening. And this conversation has probably served its purpose for me at this point.
I'd also like you to consider the fact that I might just be drunk.
These are all fair considerations. I'll agree with you.
Yeah, you do tend to exit soon after.
That there are times where not participating sends a message as well as as being, I'm here listening, but I don't have anything to add, I don't have any fuel to throw on this fire right now. I'm just going to listen to you guys. We'll get it out of your system. Maybe you'll come around and to a solution. Maybe you're just venting, and that's okay too, right? Like nobody likes it when the power goes out, right? If you go outside when the power's out and you see a neighbor, it's very easy to have a conversation about the power being out because you're both unhappy that the power's out. But neither one of you is going to climb that pole and hook the wires up again, right? So,
and how many times do you have to,
right? Yeah.
Sorry, how many times do you have to go over these things Because sometimes you find that you're just rehashing the same old thing over and over again. And it's like, okay, now you're not really venting. You're just you're locked in this pattern and you need to shake out of it. You know, everybody's heard the song before and the joke or whatever, and it's time to, put that to bed and move on. Because at that point, it's not productive.
Well, you're just complaining then, right?
Yeah.
And I think that goes back to Chad's point too. In those moments, it might be good to call that out because someone may not even recognize that they're doing it, right? And how else are you going to know if you're not being called out on it? I'd rather have that honesty. If I'm doing it, right? Hey, Pyle, come on.
you mentioned this last time and the time before, and maybe there's something you can do for you that would change the outcome.
And then also just recognizing that even though you're trying to be empathetic, you're trying to be a good listener. If you find that somebody's emotional dumping is now impacting your happiness, it's okay to say, hey, I don't have the capacity to do this anymore.
Right.
I can't continue to be this person for you right now. There might be other options for you that aren't me.
And I like Chad's response. I've had a different experience than that. That's a pretty, that's doesn't say I disagree with you. It doesn't say I'm right. It just says I've had a different experience.
And I like that because it shifts perspective, right? Or at least presents additional perspectives that hopefully someone is able to then see when they find themselves in this cycle.
It makes them think about where they're at in their head. There's a different experience out there. There's other possibilities for this.
Yeah.
We're kind of...
I worry that by saying that, though, I am getting dangerously close to becoming a circle back guy. So I use it sparingly.
Well, right. And hopefully these conditions don't happen every single day, right? If you go to a happy hour and everybody's complaining about the same thing over and over and over, maybe that's really not a great place, right?
Yeah. Time to go.
Or it might just be those happy hours aren't happening frequently enough. If you're having a happy hour once every couple months and spending hours dumping, it might just be that you need to take Kyle's approach and have an everyday situation.
Message received, Pyle. I will see that. unless you're going to be at the meat raffle tonight, in which case I'll see you tonight.
I will not be at.
And we just got hammered every day. It was a happy hour.
I was going to say that's also a very slippery slope.
Some apps, yeah.
Yeah.
Although there was one time the shots came out.
There was the one time.
So. We got about 7 minutes left as we wind down. Any parting thoughts, little chunks of wisdom?
I will say that if you ever come across somebody that says happiness is a choice, you should choose to stop listening to anything else that person says.
I'm pretty sure I just said that earlier.
Did you? No, you didn't.
I absolutely did. I did join this call with the intention of trying to drop as many cliches as possible throughout. I did slip that one in.
I have heard that phrase before, and then I'm a little known fact about your buddy. I read Psychology Today for the articles, right? Not for the picture. And it had a list of some of these toxic phrases, and one of them was happiness is a choice. Right up there was I'm sorry you feel that way, and then there were a handful of other things that I hear a little too much, and I'm and then there was the rationale behind it because nobody's choosing to be the opposite of happy either, right? I'm not choosing to be sad or stressed out or whatever. I'm choosing a lot of the behaviors that probably led to that, right? But
Chad, have you considered that if you're not changing it, you're choosing?
If I'm not changing the behaviors that are leading to, but this is why I buy a keyboard, listen to music, be around people if that's your thing. I really do hope that's a thing for most folks because one of the happiest things for me is when we get somebody new at a happy hour, right? Last night we had, I haven't been able to sit across from Stephen Lake ever in the 4 years at SDG. And the week before it was Rhett, and then, these guys that I get to talk to and hear their stories, it makes me a lot happier being around some of these folks. And it hopefully rubs off the same way on those guys too. And not only that, it makes fun. Yeah, and it makes SDG more tactile. Yes, I've been here. The people are not horrible. I can go to a happy hour or coffee. Hashtag Chad Grows.
But you get a broader sampling of the company, and it's like, yeah, more and more good people.
Mhm.
Make more connections, tighter connections. It's a good thing. Happiness is a choice, not always. And in saying that to somebody at the wrong time can be very offensive. It's dismissive. My parting thought would be to really try to make your interactions with people good ones. Every day is just a constant stream of interactions. And just even walking by somebody in the hallway and smiling, not feeling compelled to say anything, just smiling, acknowledging their existence, doing the thing, yeah, what's up? Yeah, how you doing? Good. Picking your moments to answer honestly when they ask you how you're doing.
I will say that, if you can find things, just little things that bring you joy, like a keyboard, like it's so fun when you get to see some of those things. And it doesn't have to be a physical thing. It can be a concept or something, and a new mug,
Gigantic mug.
gigantic mug. All those things just bring a little joy, and they add up.
Someone gave me this,
Fun
and
dip.
I won't eat it because I like to see it on my desk, and it reminds me that someone gave me some Fun Dip.
I think I'm going to be happy now thinking about your Fun Dip.
My last thing is that I work on with myself is trying not to be cynical about things. I think skeptical is fine, but I think cynical is bad. Peter's a skeptic, and I enjoy that about him. And he's not cynical.
I try not to be,
Yeah.
but it doesn't always work.
And breathe and smile.
And go to happy hour.
And say goodbye, everybody.
I'm ready for happy hour. Yep. Goodbye, everybody.
Solution Design Group is a digital product consultancy in Minneapolis. Check us out on the web at solutiondesign.com or look for us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram at Solution Design.